in a perfect example of how our economic leaders have turned us into zombies that simply cannot see the good for the good. Today was another blockbuster day, 303,000 jobs created in the last month. And somehow it starts out like, wow, the economy is on fire, to then which all the worries begin. Oh my God, we just had too many people employed. You know, it is something that I've said about this economic system for a long time, right? Is that it is dependent on having the middle class and poor, a certain percentage of them hurting. Because if they're doing too well, the people on the top don't like it. But it is different. The reason they don't like it is a different reason than they would tell you. They would tell you that we don't like it because interest rates are going to be going up because if we have a strong labor market and if people are buying things, etc., that somehow inherently an overheated economy will create inflation. But that is the biggest fallacy we have learned. I tell you what, let's go ahead and listen to this morning, Joe, some segments within this, some clips within this segment that I put together. And then we'll talk a little bit more on the other side.
March job numbers came out. It was released moments ago. Good Lord. This is an economy that you can't keep down. And that's not actually great news for the Biden administration in this election year. It shows the U.S. economy added 303,000 jobs last month. Economists expected the number to be closer to 200,000. All right, Andrew. So there's a reason why I only went into the business school for one class, Econ 101, and I sat in the back reading Sports Illustrated and probably slipped out of there with a gentleman C-. It's because this is just so maddening. In economics, good news is bad news is good news. And I will admit, I was sitting here hoping that number was going to be a little bit lower so we could get those interest rate cuts. And so This economy would cool down. Man, you can't cool this economy down, Andrew, can you?
But to some extent, that's a good news story because it means that we have more people coming into the workforce than before. And yet we're able to actually now have lower unemployment numbers. You're having higher wages. You're finally having wages that are outstripping inflation, which is a good trend line. Especially when you think about some of the political dynamics that represents. I'm not sure I look at this and say this is such terrible news. I know there was an expectation earlier in the year that the Fed might lower their interest rates this June. I think that may be off the table now. You're looking from just even the betting markets right now. That's getting pushed off a little bit too. And the percentage chance that happens is now lower than it used to be. But nonetheless, I think this is all good news. And interestingly, you look at where the jobs are coming from. It's hospitality. It's education. It's healthcare. These are all high touch businesses. And that also is a function a little bit of the sort of pre-pandemic, post-pandemic world, which is it's all come back. And so, the real question is how long does that persist till they get to sort of a steady state? But clearly there's some good news there.
But my concern is, of course, again, good news is good news. And yes, it's great for all the reasons that Andrew said. At the same time, inflation still could go up. Oil over $90 now. Again, this is an economy that can heat up just like this. I find it hard to believe that the Fed is going to lower interest rates twice this year if the economy keeps growing like this.
I don't disagree with you. Well, Andrew's right. Good news is good news. This is a really strong report. There's even kind of an immigration story hidden in here with all these people coming into this country. Employers are scooping them up. There are jobs to be had. But I think the point that you're getting at goes to how Americans feel and the inflation point. And so Andrew pointed out, listen, it's great that wage growth is moving faster, higher than inflation. That's great on paper. But let's remember this. When people get paid more money, when they get a raise, they credit themselves with it. But when life is expensive, which it is, they blame the government. So when you go to the grocery store and things cost a lot of money, I could say, well, guess what? We've had the best economic recovery in the world. No one says, well, gee, I was planning to move to Spain and it's more expensive there. When my son gets a job this summer making hoagies and gets paid $17 an hour, he's going to think it's because he's a great hoagie maker. He's not. And you could also argue, well, all these companies, they're price gouging. They should lower their prices. They're not going to lower their prices anytime soon. Life is expensive, and that's what makes this challenging. But to Andrew's original point, no one can argue we have a bad economy. We have a very strong one that has a difficult political story to tell because life's expensive.
So we'll ignore the slide on your son's hoagie making ability. But Donnie, the political story to tell. Steph just alluded to it. I mean, the president has put out a statement just a few moments ago talking about how this report marks a milestone in America's comeback.
I try to tell us all, let's grow up. A strong economy, a lot of people getting work over and beyond what is expected of them to get work. Wages are going up because as more people are there, as more people go for jobs, etc., and as the economy needs more jobs to reach people, they're going to have to pay them what they're worth. I mean, which is what they should be doing in the first place. But in so doing, in telling us, trying to tell us that, well, there are just too many people working now, it actually gives licenses to the thugs that runs our corporations to do what they do best, rob us of our money via higher prices, and also the feds creating higher interest rates. Neither one of those are necessary. You have been lied to. Okay? First of all, you heard Morning Joe said, Joe Scarborough talks about, oh, I can't believe it. Oil prices are now $90 a barrel. It doesn't need to be there. It is there by choice, by our economic choice. We could decide, we could say that all oil produced in the United States will stay in the United States, as we kind of have a law that way, but we can really mean it. We can also say we will make sure that Venezuela is opened up to the world, as opposed to the blockade that we quote unquote, I mean, it's not official blockade, but that's causing them their oil, which they have the largest supply of oil on the market. We could twist the arms of Saudi Arabia, who has kept on taking oil off the market to create false scarcity. In other words, prices genuinely goes up when there's not enough resources, and people can bid so that I can get it because I paid more for it than you do. But the things that's causing our price rises are not because of shortages naturally. They are because of shortages created by these executives to force prices up. You know how we could get rid of that? The government could immediately say, price increases over a certain base will be taxed at 90%. You go ahead, raise prices as much as you want. Raise prices as much as you want. What we will do is then take those excess profits and we'll tax them at 90%, and we'll give it right back to the people. This economy doesn't belong to the executives. This economy doesn't belong to the shareholders. This economy belongs to all of us. We all work in this economy. We all participate in this economy. We all shop in this economy. We all create inventions in this economy. We all build in this economy. To give a select few the power to say, I am going to gouge you with prices, and then have the feds, instead of the feds and government saying, you will not be allowed to charge that. And if you do charge it, because it's a free country, what we can do is we can tax your profits at 90% and redistribute that right back to the people from whence you stole it. We have that option as a society to do. Because those people who would say, well, if you start taking people's profits away, that somehow they'll leave the country or go somewhere else, tell them to leave the country. Tell them to go, and don't let the door hit you on the way out. Because you know why you're here? The biggest military is there to protect your colonialism around the world. You know why you're here? Because you can't do it anywhere else. You can't charge $1,300 for Ozempic that you charge us here. Our corporations rip off Americans, and we acquiesce to it. You can't charge us $1,000 a month for insulin when overseas you charge them $35. You rip us off. You look at us and you say, Americans, you are stupid people. That's what corporations tell us. They tell us, because based on the way they treat the rest of the world and how they treat us, they tell us that we are stupid. We don't have healthcare for all. Other countries do, and they get a better deal for the buck. Even our social security is at risk. They're privatizing our Medicare, and in doing so, what happens? It takes away our health. Doesn't happen overseas, doesn't happen in France, doesn't happen in Canada, it doesn't happen in Great Britain. When is good news going to be good news for us all? We have to wake up. These price increases don't have to be. A strong economy does not depend on high prices when you have enough people to produce it. They talk about the border. Oh my God. The border we could turn the border into the best thing that ever happened. Because you know what? That 303 employment rate tells us that as we get more people employed, those employed people are going to need more services. And as they need more services, we're going to need more employees. And it's going to go around and around and around till we hit steady state. But it's clear we're not yet at steady state. People, they are vested in your ignorance. I repeat, our corporatocracy, our oligarchy, our plutocracy, the leaders of our enterprises, they are vested in you being uneducated. Please don't take what I'm saying at face value. You can look it up. You can query economists who really care, the ones that didn't buy their degrees out of Wharton College or one of these business schools, who are there to simply indoctrinate you. It's not difficult math. Business math is some of the simplest math out there. It's not difficult to understand. It's not difficult to understand supply and demand. If you have a lot of oil all over the world, why is oil $90 a barrel? If you have people ready to work the land and you have an excess of land throughout this country, there's absolutely no reason, none, absolutely no reason for prices to be high given the abundance of riches we have both in labor, land, and abilities. The only reasons we have inflation, the only reasons we have shortages, they are manufactured by the corporatocracy, the corporations, to make themselves a profit. And if you doubt it, look at their profit statements, look at their balance sheets. It's right there in black and white. They're hoping that you are so dumb that you won't ever go ahead and read it and say, oh my God, these inflation rates directly correlate with your excess profits, with your stock buybacks. People, let's get smart and let's stop being indoctrinated by a whole bunch of parasites who themselves don't have much upstairs. I guarantee you, most of you have more upstairs than the execs in these companies. I can guarantee that. Why do we allow them to do what they do to us? Let's grow up.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.